You have to understand, Islam for Muslims is more than just a set of beliefs, it's their identity. And our parents were not just followers of Islam, they lived Islam. Islam was their life, as it was mine. And to leave it would be like betrayal. I didn't realize this. This wasn't something I was consciously thinking. I just looked at the evidence and I said, oh, I'm not convinced. But the thing that was keeping me from being convinced was the cost that I would have to pay, subconsciously. Those were the verses I knew. What I didn't know were verses like chapter 9, verse 5. Slay the infidel wherever you find them, lay siege to them and take them captive. That's in the Quran too. Verses like, fight the Jews and Christians until they pay the ransom tax and feel humiliated. I didn't know about that verse either. I honestly didn't know about these verses because when Muslims read the Quran, most of them are not Arabs. The Quran is written in Arabic. Less than 20% of the Muslim world is Arab. And those who are Arab speakers speak Amiya, they speak colloquial forms of Arabic. They don't speak the classical Quranic Arabic. And so we didn't understand a lot of these texts unless our teachers told us about them. Around the world, definitely. All four schools of Sunni thought believe in the law of apostasy, Sunni being one of the major divisions of Islam. All three schools of Shia thought believe in the law of apostasy. Under certain circumstances, you can be killed for leaving your faith. But even here, that very year, 2004, a family in New Jersey was stabbed to death because they accepted Christ and left Islam. And so, as a Muslim then, truth really, really mattered. I remember when I was approached back in high school by a friend, her name's Betsy. She approached me and she said, Nabeel, do you know Jesus? So I saw it as my duty to share true monotheism with Christians who didn't realize they were polytheists. That's how I felt. And so I would share Islam with whoever would listen. The first time I encountered a Christian who actually was prepared with answers to these kinds of questions was in college. His name was David. I met him on a debate tournament. I had joined the debate team, he had joined the debate team, and we were going for our first tournament. When we got to the hotel, the rest of the team went out. Some of them had brought drugs with them. Some of them were looking to hook up for the night, do all kinds of stuff. The team all went out to do their thing. My mom had taught me, hey, don't do that kind of stuff, be above that. And so I stayed back. There was one other guy on the team who said, I don't want to be a part of that either. And he stayed back. And I thought, okay, well, I can actually see eye to eye with this guy. And so we had to share rooms anyway. So we ended up rooming together that night. And as I'm putting my stuff away, he pulls out a Bible and starts reading. I began to realize that the case for Christianity was very, very strong. But I didn't accept it. And this is hard to explain, but the reason I didn't accept it was because of subconscious factors. There was a lot I would have to give up if I were to become a Christian. I didn't realize this. This wasn't at the tip of my head. But there was a lot I was going to have to give up.
But let me put this here. This is the reason why the topic is secret second wives. Is the question that needs to ask is that why are men even choosing to make it secret? And the whole reason is because if your husband was to come to you and say, I want to get married again and I want to do it properly, yeah? Now I say to the sisters, if you don't want your husband to get a second wife, you tell him that if he's going to get a second wife, he has to do it properly. Meaning, which is what, and let me tell you something, if you don't want your husband to get a second wife, implement this, yeah? You tell him you're going to marry her, you're going to do a walima for her, you're going to get her mahar, you're going to get all of this stuff. You know what you'll say? You'll say, bruv, that's long.
Absolutely.
But if there are men out there who can do that, the question I want to ask you guys is, what is the right way so men don't go behind their wife's back? Why are they keeping it secret? Because they are scared of the consequences. Not seeing their kids, being kicked out, being blackmailed. These are major sins, by the way. Not showing your kids. I know brothers who have been divorced and not seeing their kids because they wanted to get second wife. This is dhulm. On the day of judgment, are you mad?
I don't understand
Guys, hello, sorry. Please, guys, 1 second, please. 1 second. There's a few things that was touched upon. I want to come to. We're gonna wrap up, inshallah. Yeah, okay. Yes. So what I'm saying is, in a nutshell, is that the man feels less loved when the woman spends more time with his kids. He's given 50% of the love, and there's statistics that show that men feel deprived. Yeah. Now, when it comes to desire, what you're doing is you're equating desire with, you're saying mine is marriage, but yours is just desire. It's like me belittling what you're going through. What if I came and said, for example, that you're going through menopause, and your period, and when you're pregnant as well, when the woman is pregnant, it's we're learning here, it's hard to have intimacy. Okay, so can the man come and say, hold on a second, I am being deprived? And there are studies that show a man's sexual drive, there is no comparison. So this is the reason why we say, biologically, when I had that discussion with that toxic feminist girl, yeah, you guys are vulnerable in a altercation. When it comes to a man, you are biologically weaker. Guys, why has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us men about Hur al-Ain, and they are described in a very, very specific manner? Why? Because Allah created us, He knows our weaknesses, He knows what we want. We're a simple people. Why is it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't gone into details what women are going to get? You know why? Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said you're going to get one palace and one bag, you will say, oh, but I want 10 palaces. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't go into details. But when it comes to the man, bro, very simple. Hur al-Ain, thank you all day, every day, brother. And that's why. You can wait until. That's why.
Ali, I just wanted to say. I wanted to say, yeah.
And so she comes up to me, Betsy does, and she says, do you know Christ? And I say, yeah, I do. I know that Jesus is virgin born. The Quran tells me so. I know that Jesus heals lepers and cures the dead and the deaf and the blind and can raise the dead. I know He's the Messiah. The Quran tells me all this. But I also know that Jesus is not God. And she responded, of course He's God. You know, that's the center of our faith. Jesus is Lord. That's okay. I will grant you all 4 Gospels. I will grant you the Gospels. Show me where Jesus claims to be God. And without fail, Betsy, along with everyone else, was not able to defend the deity of Christ.
If something is dependent on something else, it cannot be a creator.
In Mark chapter 14, verse 62, when you understand its context. Here Jesus claims to be the Son of Man from Daniel. He claims to be the I Am from Exodus. Jesus very clearly claims to be God. And he says, well, do care to share? And I said, well, Jesus spoke in Aramaic, right? And then the early church spoke Hebrew. So already whatever they're talking about is a translated version. But then the whole New Testament is written in Greek. So you've got a translation of a translation by the time you get to the New Testament. And David said, Nabeel, let me tell you something. We have in our possession today over 5,500 Greek New Testament manuscripts with which we can reconstruct the entire New Testament. And if we didn't have any of the Greek New Testament manuscripts, we have over 10,000 Latin New Testament manuscripts. If we didn't have any of them, we have 8,000 Coptic Syriac manuscripts. If we didn't have any of them, we've got 36,000 quotations of the New Testament. All of these by themselves are enough to recreate the entire New Testament. And the people who wrote the New Testament were the disciples, and these people were multilingual. They could understand Aramaic, they could understand Greek, they could hear in one and write in another without losing the message whatsoever.